Blog Talk Radio.
No risk it, no biscuit.
Coming from the Arizona desert, presented by SBNation.com. For Arizona Cardinals fans, by Arizona Cardinals fans, with outsider and insider's perspective, this is Revenge of the Birds. Good evening, Arizona Cardinals fans. This is your host, Jess Root, for Revenge of the Birds Radio, brought to you by SB Nation's RevengeOfTheBirds.com. And we are a couple of days away from the Arizona Cardinals going on the road to taking on the New Orleans Saints down at the Superdome, a matchup that many feel is not a particularly good matchup for the Cardinals. Vegas has the open betting with the Saints at a 7-point underdog, or that the Saints as the 7.5-point favorites. I've seen lines as much as 9, some that have settled in at 7 so far. And needless to say, you definitely would have to think that the Saints would be the favorite to win that game, that this would be an upset, would be one of those scratch-out wins or steal a win on the road. It would be a big win for the Arizona Cardinals. And it sounds like they might have to be doing that, perhaps a little shorthanded. Now, regarding interviews. Now, before I let you what we got, we have a guest calling in from the SB Nation Saints site, Canal Street Chronicles. We're going to have Dave Cariello on the line with us in a little bit, and we're going to talk to him about the New Orleans Saints, Drew Brees, the defense, Rob Ryan, and so I'm sure he's going to have some great insight from that. And if you'd give him some love over there at Canal Street Chronicles, visit the site, you're going to get some true insight about Saints football, much like Revenge of the Birds. You guys already know the insight to the community, the fans that are there. But this week we've had some injury issues. One is good, and one's a lot so good. Rob Hauser has been practicing this week, and it looks like a pretty sure thing that he's going to be back in the mix, which really could not come at it could come at a better time. With the offense, has done. I mean, the one thing it hasn't done is look absolutely dreadful. They've not been effective in the red zone, but they haven't been good on third down. Nonetheless, they haven't been terrible overall because they've been moving the ball they're moving them, getting chunk yardage on first and second down. They're just, when it gets to third down, they haven't been particularly effective at doing that. But Rob Hauser is going to be back, and that's going to open up another piece of the offense when the passing game. The one thing that hasn't been so good is that Larry Fitzgerald thus far has not practiced. He did not practice Wednesday. He did not practice on Thursday. And I would expect that he's expecting to play, and that he will be at most limited in practice on Friday before they take the trip out east. And it was interesting, some of the comments he was saying. You might say, well, he's got the sore hamstring, got the tight hamstring. Well, obviously what he should do is sit and rest, because you don't want him making it worse. The quote when he was asked by reporters on Wednesday, there's a school of thought that says that you should sit out the game on Sunday to give your hamstring a rest. Fitz's response, I've never been to that school. Meaning, what do you get out of that? Fitz isn't going to Fitz is going to play. It might get to the point he's going to gut it out. He's the type of player. He's not the type of player that he's only going to play if he's 100%. He's going to go out and do what he can until he can't do it, until it's hurting the team. If he feels that he's hurting the team, he won't be out. But I guarantee you, having Fitz on the field, even at 60%, it's still better than having Kerry Taylor out there. Now, Kerry Taylor did have some catches, but just because out of pure reputation, Fitzgerald out there on the field gives the defense something to think about. While Kerry Taylor is skilled, while Jaron Brown, he is skilled, they're still improving, and they're not going to look. Defenses aren't going to look at and scheme for them as they would for Fitzgerald, regardless of his injury situation. And even clearly last week he wasn't in very good, because if you had asked, well, was he 80%? Fitz said if he were 80%, he would have been fine. That means he was probably at a 50%, 60% going, and they'll get better. And so I expect to see him. The other injury that may be of concern is the fact that Rashard Mendenhall hasn't practiced this week with some sort of toe injury. Reporters talked to him on Thursday. I will attempted to ask him about it. He declined to comment. Bruce Arians does not speak to the media on Thursdays. He has his coordinators. That's where Todd Bowles and Harold Goodwin both speak to the media. A little bit of insight on how things go during the week. After a game on Sunday, they have the press conference, the post-game press conference, and then the reporters get to talk to the players in the locker room. On Mondays is the day after press conference, after the coaches have watched film on the flight or at that night or that morning, and they talk to the media then. Then the media gets to talk to the players in the locker room. Tuesday there's nothing. It's the players' day off. Wednesday you get Coach Arians, you get Carson Palmer, and you get some locker room access before practice. Thursday you get locker room access, you get the coordinators but no Bruce Arians, and then you get Friday with Arians and then locker room access. That's how the media works in that sense, which is kind of an interesting thing, because the generally, at least right now, with the way Arians does things, that the player access and the coach access is prior to practice, and so you get the injury report thereafter. For the first one, which is Wednesday. So Rashard Mendenhall didn't practice on Wednesday. Well, we could ask Bruce Arians about it, but it's not until Thursday. Wait, Arians doesn't talk to the media that day, and so unless the player's going to say something in this case, Rashard Mendenhall did not. We don't get any insight as to what that is. When you see a toe injury, what does that normally mean? It normally means turf toe, right? That's what we'd expect. He has some level of turf toe. He kept beating Wells out a few games. He kept Kevin Cobb out 2 years ago out of some games. So you'd have to think, Rashard Mendenhall's hurt again. He might miss this game. Who takes his place? That's something that we'll have to think about. Number 2 on the depth chart technically is, they've got LaFonso Smith, who's been getting the snaps right behind him, Andre Ellington, Ryan Williams, who hasn't been active yet for either of the games this season. He'd have to be in the mix. And I've got a theory of something. I haven't talked to anyone about this. I have no extra insight as to this. Ryan Williams, why is he on the team? I think they see Ryan Williams and they understand the history that Rashard Mendenhall has with in particular with the knee injury, and recovering from that, he may be viewed as perhaps a bit of an injury risk. And while Ryan Williams is as well, you also have guys on the team who do not appear, who according to may or may not be number 1 back material. Ryan Williams has the talent to do that. He's shown flashes before getting hurt. And I almost see it's because he's not a special teams contributor like Andre Ellington or Stephon Taylor or Alfonso Smith, that when they sit him on the bench inactive for games, it isn't because he's not healthy, because he's not listed in the injury report. He's practicing fully. That the Ryan Williams is sort of an insurance policy of some sorts, and I would almost expect him to be, if Rashard had to sit for a game, that they would be Williams that would sit in the starting lineup, or that would get more of that number 1 back treatment, because that is the skill set he has. He doesn't have the skill set. He doesn't have the background of coming in as a specialty back or a particular package back. He's a guy that you have there on the first possession, then you bring in the subs. And so that's kind of my theory about it. My theory on Ryan Williams being the team, he's sitting at number 5 because they figure at some point Rashard Mendenhall probably will miss a game or two, and that's when they're going to have Ryan Williams step in, whether it's to create trade value, whether it's to simply just to bring him in slowly since he missed some reps, missed a lot of time in training camp. Those are just some thoughts. So injury-wise, other than that, the injuries are pretty mild. Lorenzo Alexander has a biceps issue, but he played through that on Sunday. Other than that, so we'll probably see Fitz. How effective a Fitz that is, we'll have to find out. That we'll see that on Sunday. Rob Hauser should be back, but I'm getting the feeling that Rashard Mendenhall, if he hasn't practiced all week and it's something listed as a toe injury, I'm thinking turf toe, he's going to miss a week or two. That's my initial thought before anyone else comes out and says anything. And so we got the Saints. The Saints are the 2-0 team, although they will admittedly say, those who follow the team will admittedly say that the win that they got against Tampa Bay was, in fact, a gift. Drew Brees hasn't looked like Drew Brees, per se. He put up some pretty decent numbers. He's turned the ball over a few times, but the yard is still there. And they got the win over Atlanta, so that's definitely a good win. The defense is looking better, although against the run they haven't been quite efficient. How much can you expect the Cardinals to be successful with the run? I don't know. How much are they going to go with the run? How much will they go with the run? Now, these are some questions, and they've got some new faces. They brought in Rob Ryan. Yes, the Ryans. We love the Ryans. Whether it be Rex, whether it be Buddy, whether it be Rob, the Bidwell family is kind of a hits on a byword around here in Arizona land. I'm sure if there was a choice of any other defensive coordinator out there and Rob Ryan would not get hired by the Cardinals after the Buddy Ryan experience 20 years ago. But he's now running things after kind of giving the Saints sort of a look, I would have to imagine, that gives them something similar to the way that Greg Williams coached their defense. The same type of confidence, the same type of attacking and risk-taking, of schematic risk-taking and attacking defense would work out that way. But before we move on, before we bring on Mr. Cariello of Canal Street Chronicles, we obviously need to look at, what are the Cardinals? Now they're 1-1. What would it mean to win? They obviously have, and what they're gonna stay the next week in Florida as leading up to the Tampa Bay game. So they got a road game against New Orleans. Next week they've got a road game at Tampa. What is going to be a success for Cardinals fans? Are Cardinals fans going to be okay of them coming back home against Carolina with a 1-3 record? Will they? After the Bruce Arians honeymoon will have worn off a bit? Or will it depend on how they look when they play? If they get one of the two wins, I think a 2-2 start everyone's happy with. 1-3, is everyone going to be happy? Or will it depend on how they play those teams? That's the question that remains to be seen. So again, you're listening to Revenge of the Birds Radio. This is your host, Jess Root, and actually, I think we're set to bring on our guest, Dave Cariello from Canal Street Chronicles. He is not originally from Louisiana. He's a Tulane graduate, and he now resides in Louisiana, a season ticket holder, and we're going to go ahead and bring him on. Our Saints guy, our Saints interview, Dave Cariello from SB Nation's Canal Street Chronicles. All right, good evening, Dave. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
All right, I appreciate you taking a few minutes out of your time to talk about your New Orleans Saints as the Arizona Cardinals are preparing to travel out there and sort of, return to the scene of battle way back when the Cardinals were in the playoffs.
Yeah, that was a good game. I like that game.
Yes, and unfortunately for us, it marked the end of an era, as Kurt Warner's last game ever was that game. Here's to better times. You guys have continued to have some success, and last year was not. You've had success. You've had controversy. Now you have your head coach back in Sean Payton. How is the team different, and how much does it mean to have Sean Payton back at the helm for you guys?
I would say that it's huge. I think it's a big deal. I think everybody really respects Sean Payton and likes Sean Payton, and I think it's It's natural, and I think it's a good thing to have one person who runs the show, and it's his vision for the most part. But obviously the Saints are 2-0. That's better than they started last season. And the defense, I think most importantly, it was Sean Payton who was behind the hiring of Rob Ryan, and I think that has proven to be, I know you're going to ask me about the Saints defense, so we might as well just get into it now. I think Rob Ryan has been the absolute right hire for the job, and I am honestly not surprised that the Saints defense has been doing as well as it's been doing. I knew that his defense would fit because it's very much like Greg Williams' defense, since they come from the same, coaching tree, that being Buddy Ryan. And the Saints had success with it in 2009. They won the Super Bowl with Greg Williams' defense. And I think because Rob Ryan's defense is so similar, I think that this Saints defense is definitely going to continue to be good. But to getting back to your original question, yes, I definitely think Sean Payton being back is absolutely crucial.
Well, good. And we'll talk a little bit about the defenses. We're already kind of right there. What does, so far, at least the 2 games into the season, what does the defense do well? What is their strength so far? And where does it, if there's a chink in the armor out there, what do they struggle at?
They struggle a little bit with stopping the run. Doug Martin last week, he had 140 yards, I think. So I think that needs to be cleaned up a little bit. But what they do well is, they seem to come up with big plays. They've been coming up with a lot of turnovers. The first game of the season, they had 4 sacks in a game. Obviously turnovers are key. But they just seem to make stops when they need the stops. They seem to tighten up in the red zone. They hold opponents to a lot of field goals, not necessarily touchdowns. So they've been able to keep the score low. But I think another issue with this defense is the injuries. Unfortunately, it feels like Rob Ryan is cursed. I think last year it was like everybody on Dallas's defense was injured, and we've sort of seen a little bit of that for the Saints. We keep losing some key guys, and we're getting a little thin at defensive line, and now we're getting a little bit thin at cornerback because Patrick Robinson is out for the year. So that's certainly a concern for me for this defense.
Okay. Now, what's kind of interesting is when the Diamondbacks, the Cardinals, Diamondbacks are a baseball team. When the Cardinals were looking for a defensive coordinator a couple of years ago, when they ended up hiring Ray Horton, names kept coming up, or the possibility of, for example, if Ray Horton ended up leaving, which he did end up doing after the hiring of Bruce Arians. Rob Ryan was an interesting name that came up that perhaps would be a fit here in Arizona. An interesting perspective is that as much as perhaps his scheme and it would fit the personnel, the Bidwells will never ever hire another Ryan ever again after the experience of Buddy Ryan 20 years ago. So that's really kind of interesting. And Buddy kind of messed things up. He did not. The organization was very unpleased with him, and they had his sons with him, kind of there on staff way back in the day. Looking at the
good old Bryant boys.
Oh goodness. but obviously he's made a name for himself. Both he and Rex have the name behind them. Does Rob have the same bravado to him that Rex or that his father had?
Oh, absolutely. This is a funny story from last week. After the Saints beat Atlanta, Rob Ryan went to a bar called Miss May's, which is this total divey bar that's open 24 hours, and drinks are like $1.25, like literally. Like you can get like a beer or like a mixed drink for like $1.25. And you get college kids in there, and you get locals in there, white, black. It's just a total mixed crowd. It's very New Orleans. It's a very New Orleans bar. And he went into the bar after the game, put down a $100 bill, and bought the entire bar around to keep the change. Which that was
wow.
$100. $100 obviously in New York gets you like a martini.
Yeah.
In New Orleans at Miss May's, that's a lot of drinks. and he just like walked out. And so he's already becoming legend. Another funny story that's just a personal story because almost nobody else saw this. This certainly takes away from his bravado legend. Is he was running out on the sideline. I think it was during one of the preseason games. He was running back onto the field, onto the sideline, and I sit 2 rows back from the Saints bench, so I'm right there. And he just tripped and fell face first. And then, he sort of like rolled onto his belly first.
Oh,
and then his face hit the ground, and he just sort of got up and laughed and walked it off and just pretended like nobody saw it. But I saw it, and it was hilarious. And I can't believe that in this day and age, with cell phones and cameras, nobody caught it. It would have been all over ESPN. I promise you that. It was hilarious.
Well, in the era of the butt fumble being shown, I don't know how many times that's really funny that didn't happen. But
I know. I cannot believe that nobody caught that because it was hilarious. He just fell. He rolled over, and it was, oh my God, it was so funny.
Now, bringing it back to more of a general area, what's going right for the Saints and what's going not so right for the Saints? So what's the kind of the state of the Saints these days?
Just overall, what's going right is the defense. Like, everybody is happy with the defense. They've done their job. They have more than fulfilled that duty. I would say what else is going right is the Saints are actually getting a lot out of their draft picks, their rookie draft picks. Kenny Vaccaro has been great on defense starting at safety. Kenny Stills is now the number 3 wide receiver. It's refreshing to see the Saints actually hit on some draft picks. They're usually not that great in the drafting department. And I think on the other side, I think people are getting a little nervous about the offense, in particular the offensive line. They don't seem to be doing a good job blocking. The run game is suffering because of that, and Drew has taken a few harder hits than we like to see him take. And the offense just isn't steamrolling like we saw in, say 2011 when they were breaking records. They have the same personnel pretty much, and they can definitely get the job done, but for some reason it's been a slow start for the offense. So it's sort of like Bizarro season. We're Saints fans are used to having this great offense, and the defense just cannot win games for them. And right now, 2 games into this season, it's totally flip-flopped. It's totally the opposite. So
now the Cardinals, going through the year that we did last year, they started out the season 4-0 and then fell apart. Lost 11 of the last 12 games. Now, the talk of the league, look at the 2 or the 2-0 teams, and some of these teams aren't like the others, quoting Sesame Street. How much of a solid 2-0 team are the Saints? Are they a 2-0 team, Arizona Cardinals style 2012? Are they a 2-0 team? Like, obviously the win over the Falcons, yes, that's a good win, but it almost seemed like last week the Tampa Bay game almost was a sort of a gift. Or how confident are those?
No, it was a gift. You don't need to sidestep that. Tampa Bay could have easily won that game, but it's still a good win because it's a divisional opponent. The Buccaneers, just like the Falcons and the Panthers, they're built to match up well against a team like the Saints and a team like the Falcons who have high-powered offenses. So these guys, that's why the Buccaneers go out and get a lot of high-quality DBs like Darrelle Revis. So a win is a win, especially against a division opponent, like 2 wins, because you get one and they get one in the loss column. So I think Saints fans are fairly happy with where they are. I think they're all waiting to see the offense get back to where it is. I think once that happens, I think they'll be very confident, and I think the Saints will be a very good team. But I don't think their offense is ever going to be terrible. So I definitely, at this point, obviously it's early, but I don't see them having a dramatic fall off. I don't expect them to be going 16-0. But
so do you see at least so far, Drew Brees? Now, granted, Drew Brees played well in Week 1, had the turnovers. he wasn't as sharp statistically in week 2. Overall, he's having as pedestrian as almost 700 yards in 2 games is, and 64% of the passes. It's sort of pedestrian if you think of Drew Brees plays. Do you think right now it's kind of in the sleeping giant mode that we don't know at whatever moment he's going to wake up and just start destroying teams again?
It's got to happen. It has to happen. I mean, Drew Brees has never just been pedestrian for an entire season. He's definitely been pedestrian before, or worse. Against the Arizona Cardinals, against you guys, he had that terrible game. I think he threw like 3 or 4 interceptions. You guys kept
that was the game in which Max Hall beat the Saints, and that was when that back in 2010 when people were saying, "Oh my goodness, Max Hall is the next Kurt Warner." No, Max Hall wasn't. He did nothing that game to. He did nothing that game to win the game. In fact, his contribution was fumbling the ball at the goal line so that Levi Brown could score a touchdown on. But so we have that feather in our cap. And then in 2010 we beat you guys at home. Where do you think, matching up with the Cardinals, that the New Orleans defense and or offense match up well, or that they're going to be able to take advantage of their strengths compared to what the Cardinals do?
Well, I mean, I think you guys have a great defense, and I think you're going to give. I mean, you've got Patrick Peterson. I think Patrick Peterson can. Obviously, he can be effective as a DB, as a cornerback, but Saints special teams is no great shake. So they certainly have to be wary of allowing Patrick Peterson a chance to run back a punt or a kickoff. And
now he gets to play on offense too. I don't know what you've been hearing. He gets some snaps on offense. He's been getting between 5 and 10 plays on offense. He's in about 60 plays. He has about a 60-play package for him. He completed a pass last week. He caught a pass last week. You're going to see him on offense too.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I don't know if they should go crazy, but I think getting Patrick Peterson the ball as many times as possible is probably a damn good idea. I mean, the dude is, and I'm no LSU homer, but because I'm a Tulane grad, I have nothing to do with LSU. But I mean, he's a great football player. I'm actually really disappointed that the Saints didn't take a chance on Honey Badger too, because I thought that was a great pickup, and I think he's done well for you guys so far this season.
Oh, he's been wonderful. He doesn't play like a rookie. He is now. Granted, part of the thing that kind of helps is the fact he's no longer in Louisiana, so he doesn't have that circle of friends. He changed his phone number, but the guy has been perfect in the classroom. He's a note taker. He's up at the front. He's great in practice. He is the nickel corner, so he's the backup free safety. He's the number 1 nickel corner. He gets significant playing time, and he makes at least a play or two every single game.
Yeah, I would say defensively, you guys. I mean, if the Saints are going to continue to struggle and if they're not going to get help from their offensive line, your defense could definitely win the day over the offense. And history has shown that you guys have done well against Drew Brees and this offense. So that's personally, I think, what I'm going to be looking at most. Good.
Pass rush. What type of pass rush do you guys have, and what is the strength of the pass rush? Is it speed? Is it power? Is it persistence? Because if there's one thing that our tackles, particularly Levi Brown on the left side, he struggles with a pure speed rush. Robert Quinn destroyed him. Dwight Freeney makes him look ridiculous in the preseason against San Diego, but he holds his own against guys that are stronger. He holds up well in the running game, but it is the pure speed guys that really give him fits. What type of pass rush do you guys have on that side?
I would say where the Saints get their advantage on the pass rush is their scheme, and I mean they run a base 3-4, but Rob Ryan's defense is so exotic. I mean I've seen them where nobody's on the line. I mean where they're all just standing around. He does exotic things, so I think where they have the advantage is that he's always disguising where that pressure is coming from. I mean, I don't think the Saints have any one guy. I mean, they've gotten a lot of help so far this season from all different guys. Paris Harrelson, who they acquired in a trade with the 49ers, which I think was a good trade. He's had a sack or two. Cameron Jordan had a sack last week. They bring it from all angles and all types of fronts, and I think that's more so where they're able to find a little bit of an advantage. They don't really have one guy who's just they don't have a J.J. Watt or somebody like that. But
and we are glad for that. We are definitely glad for that.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the one guy who's trying to be as J.J. Watt as possible, though, is Junior Gillette. I mean, he is just totally fired up. He's always just ready to go. He's got a lot of energy. He's a fast guy. I would say he's one guy that maybe you'd want to keep your eye on. But really and truly, they use all different types of guys and just sort of confuse quarterbacks.
Well, great. So we're looking forward to this game. Obviously, the last couple of times they played, one was the playoff win where the Cardinals looked like, after that 80-yard run by Tim Hightower, looked like, hey, we got a game, and then they just fell apart. Then 2010, that was not so good, and the two teams have stayed in different directions. Obviously, the Saints had a down year last year with everything around the team leading up to Sean Payton's suspension for the year, Greg Williams being dismissed, things and all that. But the Cardinals are kind of on the way back, and the Saints are kind of, okay, we're back. If you had to predict, putting you on the line here, if you had to predict, which way do you go? Is it Saints big? Is it Saints close? Is it? I would imagine you're going to pick the Saints. How much of a threat are the Cardinals on the road to you guys?
I am really personally, I'll be going to the game as a fan, sitting in my regular season tickets, and I am personally really not that worried about this game. But I don't think the Saints are necessarily going to win big. For some reason, I see the offense still getting off to a slow start. But I think our defense will definitely be able to keep us in the game. The Cardinals' offense does not really frighten me or worry me that much. But I'll say the Saints are going to win, but it'll be close. I'll go with 27-20.
That's definitely a reason. I believe I think the opening line for the week, wasn't it 7.5? Is that what the Vegas put you guys at?
And honestly, if I was betting, I would pick the Cardinals for that.
And based on what we've seen from the Cardinals so far, they're going to keep games close. They're on Tuesday night when we have our regular show recapping the previous game, we talked about it, is how the Cardinals play in a way that they're probably not going to get blown out by anyone. This is as good as a week that could happen, where you've got the Saints coming off of a couple of tough wins, and now they're at home, and we know you guys play insanely well at home. That's one of the settings where kind of the wheels could fall off for us, but obviously I'm not rooting for the Saints. But one last question. Obviously, we've got a couple of New Orleans people, a couple of players that are near and dear to the hearts of those in Louisiana. How big are Patrick Peterson and Tyrann Mathieu still back home?
Like I said, I am not a huge LSU fan. I do follow LSU because all my friends do. They love them. They love both of them. I would say probably Patrick Peterson a little bit more, but they're at that level. They don't have to eat or drink or pay for their meals or pay for their bar tab if they're ever out and about somewhere in the French Quarter.
Well, that's great to know. Well, I appreciate the time, Dave. Good luck on Sunday. And I'm hoping that not too much luck, though. So, but we appreciate you having you on tonight, and I hope you have a wonderful evening. And we'll get back together sometime later on, maybe down the line. We'll have to do that.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it.
You have a good night.
Thanks.
So there you have it. We've got Dave Cariello. Special thanks to him. By the way, you can find him and his site on Twitter at Saints CSC, at Saints CSC. That's for Canal Street Chronicles. Go ahead and take a visit over there. Again, this is Jess Root with Revenge of the Birds Radio. You can follow us, as always. You know the site, revengeofthebirds.com. and we're talking about the Saints. Now, a couple of things that we get from that. Obviously, the Saints fans probably don't view the Arizona Cardinals as much of a threat, so they don't see them as much of a battle. Should we expect the Cardinals to play them close, to sneak away with a victory? I'll be the first to admit every single time I think the Cardinals are going to win. I like to pick them to win. I think this game is what will kind of determine the type of team that the Cardinals are going to be for the rest of the year. This is their prove-it game. If they get blown out, which it could happen. I mean, we're kind of waiting for Drew Brees to kind of awaken. That's how I see it. I see it that the Drew Brees at some point is just going to awaken. And hopefully it's not this week. And what's tough is that the Cardinals have yet to produce much of a pass rush. If you're giving Drew Brees time in the pocket, you're going to lose. So this could be ugly. I wouldn't be shocked by it. At the same time, if they battle and somehow don't quite seal the deal, or New Orleans makes a great drive at the end of the game to win it, okay, I can accept that loss. I can be pleased with the loss like that. And if that's how it goes, I think we're going to continue to see more of the same throughout the year. Now, if they win, I think that is a win that then propels them to a playoff-type year. This really is somewhat of the team's test. What are they made of playing on the road at the Superdome, which is an incredibly difficult place to play? Not quite on the level of CenturyLink Field in Seattle, but it's certainly they're living in Louisiana. If you live in Louisiana, it's almost a requirement. You have to be a Saints fan. There's no excuse. So if the Cardinals win that, you could almost see it happening where the team is taking the transformation much like the Colts did a year ago, where they're getting things to fall their way. And would lead them to 10, 11 wins. I mean, could be wrong, but I really kind of see this game as the real measuring stick. We saw one sort of measuring stick with the Rams, and they fell short. Okay, that's the type of team we're going to have. Then they got the win against Detroit. Again, that's at home. It's a little bit different story. But if they are tough in defeat, okay, I think that's kind of what we expect and the kind of the expectations we had. Are they remaining competitive? If they come away from a win, I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket to start with, like, oh, we're going to the playoffs. Keep an eye on this team. I think it will be one of those special-ish type. I'm not saying they're going to Super Bowl, no. But I think something's going to happen. Then you're going to see them roll and rip off a few wins and definitely be in the mix. And interesting comments he made about what's going well. The defense is going well. The Cardinal offense will be facing a tough defense. They played a tough defense against St. Louis, and they struggled. They struggled to put up points. This season, they play a defense that has talent. However, it's kind of not been known to be a good defense. You can rip yards off of them, and you can just gash through them in the passing game. New Orleans has the defense this year. So you obviously don't imagine that the Cardinals are going to go in and get the win. Now, how are the Cardinals going to do that? Some issues, obviously. Sure, the Saints line offer gave up 4 sacks last week at Drew Brees. Can the Cardinals do anything to put pressure on Brees? You can't. I already said this. You can't let Brees just pick and choose routes and receivers, because he will beat you. He will. He will beat you. He's that good. We've seen that historically now. They struggle at stopping the run. If we don't have Rashard Mendenhall, can we count on the other running backs to hold the running game and to be productive enough in the running game to keep them from keying off on the pass? Their pass defense has been pretty good. That's another big question. Prediction? But before we close, prediction. I see Vegas has this game set at 48.5 as the over-under. I'm going to say take the over on that bet. Take the over on that bet. And I expect a 34-29 game of some sort. I'm going to say 34-29. 34-29. One way or the other. We'll see what happens. So what are your plans? Hopefully at 10 o'clock a.m. Arizona time on Sunday, you are glued to the tube, watching not only the result of the plays, but perhaps what the players are doing. And then watch the second half. Let's see what happens. We're going to go ahead and close the night. We'll go ahead and close up shop. And thanks for listening. This is Jess Root from Revenge of the Birds Radio, presented by RevengeOfTheBirds.com, the Arizona Cardinals SB Nation team community. Visit there, keep on talking. And we're going to have, next time you hear from us will be Tuesday night, 9 o'clock Arizona time, midnight Eastern time. We will have our staff writers as guests again. And you'll be able to call in, make your comments, call and leave us a message. And we'll see what happens against New Orleans. Have a good night. This is Jess, signing out.
You've been listening to Revenge of the Birds. Keep the conversation going by visiting RevengeOfTheBirds.com. Follow us on Twitter at Revenge of Birds. You can also find us on iTunes at Facebook.com/RevengeOfTheBirds.